All right, so recently I mentioned that some anxiety had come up for me again, and I had many of you reach out asking for what tools I use to cope with it and manage it. So I'm going to share 3 tools today. There are many more, but let's start with 3. And also, just so you know, this is not something I'm like, oh yeah, I deal with this perfectly. As soon as anxiety comes up, I'm like, oh, let me just grab my tools. This is no problem. No, nobody likes anxiety. It's not fun. We would all rather not have it, but we do, some of us. So here we go. Tool number 1 is to notice it and name it. So as soon as I realize what's happening, I take a minute and I try to say out loud. I recommend saying out loud, this is anxiety. That alone takes away some of the power. And then I recommend naming what physical sensations you're feeling. I notice that my chest is really tight. I notice that my stomach is in knots. Maybe my heart's racing. For those of you who have experienced anxiety, you know that it can feel like you're dying or that something's very wrong. But it's naming these physical sensations that helps to kind of distance a little bit, because when we have anxiety, our racing thoughts are often so connected to our racing heart that it's hard to separate from. But naming those sensations helps us to get a little bit more clarity and distance from what is happening. Number 2 is to allow it and breathe into it. I know that's not what you guys want, these tools to know how to get anxiety to go away. You don't want these tools so I can say, this is how you feel more anxiety. But I promise you that if you do this, the feelings pass quicker and they're not as painful. So I breathe. I try to remind myself to breathe and to not resist it, to not fight it, to not wish it away right away. And I try to breathe, especially into those areas. Like, I imagine that I'm breathing especially into those areas where I'm feeling the tension, where I'm feeling the knots in my stomach. Wherever you feel it, allow it and breathe into it, and just remind yourself, this is anxiety. This is what I'm feeling, and it's going to be okay. All right, so tip number 3 is to brainstorm possible causes to address. I think this is what we want to do right away. Normally, we want to figure out what's causing us to feel bad, change it, make everybody act differently so that we don't have to feel this way. But steps number 1 and 2 are so important. Then we get to this point and we can address 2 different things. One is mental, so looking at our thoughts and all the thoughts that we're having about situations and how those thoughts are causing us to feel anxious. And honestly, this is like a whole topic that I will go into more at some point. But just knowing that our thoughts can cause the anxiety is helpful, because we can do something about that. And it's so powerful. Number 2 is to think about physiological issues. So, did we not get enough sleep? Are there some hormonal things happening? Is there a medication? Is there something else going on physiologically that could be adding to our anxiety? And that has often been the case for me, because I do know how to do a lot of thought work, and it's very powerful. And then sometimes I notice that there are physiological things that are making my anxiety worse. So all of it is really worthy of taking a look at. And don't forget those first 2 steps, super important. So I hope that this is helpful for you today. And for those of you who struggle, just know I get it. And I don't think that these tools are super easy and take everything away and make it all fine. No, I know that. But I do know that they can help. And I hope that they might help you or someone that you love if you want to share this with them. And I would love to hear your thoughts on my post.